Lily gave her heart to her husband, her secrets to her best friend, and her kindness to a new neighbor only to be left empty, broken, and alone. When tragedy struck, she thought it was life unraveling, but it was something far deeper. In the silence of her pain, a chilling dream revealed a dark truth. Betrayal had a face, and it had been smiling at her all along. Once upon a time, there lived a couple in the heart of a bustling city. Their names were Ryan and Lily, and they got married after being in a relationship for over 6 years. Lily was now pregnant, and Ryan adored her deeply, never missing a chance to show it. He often brought her breakfast in bed and left handwritten notes around the apartment for her to find. They seemed like a match made in heaven, and Lily felt like the luckiest woman alive. Their home was always filled with laughter, and the couple cherished every moment together. Ryan absolutely adored his wife. Even their arguments ended with gentle forehead kisses. They never went to bed angry. He would often brag to anyone willing to listen that his wife, Lily, was the best woman a man could ever have. All his friends envied the love they shared. One morning, while Lily was getting ready for her prenatal appointment, Ryan asked her a question she didn't expect. "Why do you keep refusing to go to church with me?" he asked. Lily shrugged, adjusting the strap of her handbag without meeting his eyes. "I just don't feel like it," she replied casually. "Besides, you go for both of us," she added with a smile before grabbing her bag and heading out to the hospital. Ryan didn't say another word, and Lily didn't give his question much thought. After her hospital visit, she stopped by the grocery store before heading home. Several hours later, Lily walked through the door needing to use the restroom badly. The baby was pressing hard on her bladder. She found Ryan just stepping out of the bathroom. But when she tried to go in, he blocked the door. "What's wrong, babe?" Lily asked, trying hard to hold it in. Ryan didn't respond. He stood there staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Then, in a voice colder than winter, he said, "Don't ever use any bathroom in this house again." Lily blinked in confusion. "Why? What happened?" she asked. But Ryan didn't answer. He just walked into their bedroom, leaving her stunned in the hallway. Unsure what to make of it, Lily figured he had to be joking. Unable to hold it anymore, she went ahead and used the restroom. But Ryan wasn't joking. That evening, Lily noticed his behavior had changed. He didn't come to the table for dinner. He didn't respond when she asked if he was okay. And when she leaned in to kiss him goodnight, he turned away from her. At first, Lily chalked it up to stress. Maybe something at work had gone wrong. She hoped he would open up to her the next morning. But Ryan said nothing. Instead, he locked every bathroom in the house, completely ignoring the fact that his pregnant wife needed them. Then he left for work. Lily couldn't believe what was happening. She called her best friend Rachel, who asked what she could have possibly done to deserve such treatment. Lily was at a loss. She explained that they rarely argued and everything had been fine until Ryan suddenly asked about her not going to church. That one question kept playing over in her mind. She started to believe her refusal to go to church might be the reason behind his cold behavior. Still, Lily wasn't ready to change. She had sworn to herself never to attend church and wasn't about to break that promise. Rachel encouraged her to talk to Ryan when he got home. "You can't just sit here in the dark, not knowing what's going on," Rachel said. "Talk to him and we'll go from there." Lily agreed and decided to follow her friend's advice. She sat quietly, deep in thought, until suddenly she felt another urgent need to pee. Lily rushed to the bathroom, forgetting that Ryan had locked all the doors. She stood there, her legs shaking as she desperately tried to hold it in. But before she could take another step, urine began to trickle down her legs onto the floor. She froze, helpless, watching as it soaked through her gown and pooled at her feet. Humiliation gripped her like a vice. Her hands trembled as she tried to wipe her legs with the hem of her dress, but the tears in her eyes made everything blurry. Slowly, she leaned against the wall and slid down until she was sitting on the cold floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Hours later, Ryan returned from work. He opened the door and was immediately hit by the sharp, sour smell of stale urine. He found Lily still sitting there, her eyes red and swollen, her clothes damp. "What happened?" he asked, his voice emotionless. Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "You happened, Ryan," she said, her voice shaking. "I peed on myself right here on the floor because my own husband locked all the bathrooms to punish me, not caring that I'm heavily pregnant." Ryan looked into her eyes, but his expression remained unreadable. "I don't know what I did to deserve this," Lily continued, her voice cracking. "If this is about me not going to church, just say it. Stop punishing me like a child." Without saying a word, Ryan turned and walked away. That evening, Lily tried everything she could to talk to him, but he ignored her completely. He still refused to unlock the bathroom doors and continued treating her with an icy silence, as if her suffering meant nothing. The next morning, Lily woke up with another urgent need to pee. She sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the locked doors for a long moment, then stood up and quietly stepped outside. She knocked on her neighbor's door. A kind and gentle woman named Tessa opened it. Tessa was well known in the neighborhood as a devoted Christian who always spoke with kindness and faith. She was just getting ready to head to church when Lily pleaded to use her restroom. Tessa didn't hesitate. She stepped aside and gently ushered Lily in. She didn't ask any questions. She could see the pain and embarrassment in Lily's face and didn't want to make it worse. Lily, however, felt deeply ashamed. When she stepped out of the bathroom, she immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience," she said softly. Tessa smiled warmly and reassured her. "It's okay, really. You're always welcome." Lily returned to her apartment feeling a storm of emotions. She couldn't bear the thought of abusing the kindness Tessa had shown. So, quietly and with a heavy heart, she cut open some large plastic bottles and placed them in the corner of her room, desperate solution for when she needed to pee again. That evening, her best friend Rachel came over. The moment she saw the locks on the bathroom doors, she was filled with fury. She stood in disbelief, staring at the evidence of what Lily had been enduring. "This is pure wickedness," Rachel muttered, her jaw tight with anger. "You're carrying his child, for heaven's sake." Lily tried to calm her. "Please, Rachel, don't make it worse. I don't even know what to say to him anymore." Rachel spun around sharply. "That's the problem. You've been quiet for too long." Without waiting another second, Rachel picked up her phone, scrolled through her contacts, and dialed Ryan's number. She didn't ask Lily's permission. It rang once, twice then he answered. "Rachel," Ryan said flatly. "Ryan?" she snapped, her voice sharp as steel. "Are you okay? Like, actually okay in the head?" There was a pause. "What is this about?" he asked cautiously. "Don't even try to play dumb with me," she shot back. "You locked all the bathrooms in your house while your pregnant wife, your wife Ryan, has to beg the neighbor just to pee? Are you insane?" Rachel's voice was sharp, slicing through the phone like a knife. "Rachel, I don't think it's your place to tell me how to run my home," Ryan responded coldly. "No, you don't think that's the problem," she fired back without missing a beat. "What exactly did she do? Refuse to go to church? So what? Does that make her less of a woman? Less deserving of basic dignity?" Ryan remained silent. "I've known Lily for over 15 years, Rachel continued. "She's one of the most peaceful, loyal people I've ever met. And seeing her reduced to using plastic bottles just to relieve herself, it breaks my heart in a way I can't even put into words." Ryan didn't reply. He ended the call abruptly, his anger simmering beneath the surface. When he got home that evening, he didn't even greet Lily. He looked her dead in the eyes and said sternly, "Don't ever let Rachel into this house again." Lily was devastated. She sat up all night watching her husband sleep, unable to believe this was the same man she had married. Not so long ago, Ryan couldn't eat or sleep if Lily was upset. He once published a full-page apology in the newspaper with pictures of himself on his knees. just to win her forgiveness after a small argument. He used to move mountains for her. And now, he was locking bathrooms, refusing to speak to her, and banning her best friend from their home. Lily didn't know what to do anymore. The next morning, Ryan was gone before she woke up, as usual, and the bathrooms remained locked. With heavy shame weighing her down, Lily walked next door and knocked. It was the most humiliating thing she had ever done, but she had no other choice. Tessa welcomed her inside again without hesitation. She could tell something was terribly wrong, but didn't pry until Lily came out of the restroom. "Sit with me for a moment," Tessa said gently. Lily sat down slowly, her eyes avoiding contact. "Are you okay, Lily?" she asked softly. That one question opened the floodgates. Lily burst into tears, her voice trembling as she said, "My husband has changed." She told Tessa everything, every painful detail. Tessa was stunned. She reached for Lily's hand and held it firmly. "The first step to solving any problem is identifying what the problem is," she said calmly. "Don't assume, Lily. You need to ask your husband directly, calmly, without tears, without shouting." Lily wiped her face and nodded slowly. "I tried. I asked him if this was about church. He didn't say anything." "Then ask again," Tessa replied. "But this time, don't ask expecting an answer. Ask to listen. Let him speak. Even silence can tell you something if you really watch closely." Lily didn't say anything. She sat in silence, her fingers curling and uncurling against the fabric of the couch. That evening, when Ryan returned home, Lily prepared his dinner and waited. He walked past her like she didn't exist. She followed him into the bedroom and stood quietly at the door. "I'm not here to argue," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just want to understand." Ryan kept his back to her, slowly unbuttoning his shirt like her words were nothing but noise. "Did I do something wrong? Say something? Do something? Just help me understand, Ryan. Please." He didn't even look at her. He just climbed into bed and turned away. Lily stood there, crushed. She had tried everything to reach him, but he remained locked in silence. She cried herself to sleep that night. But in the middle of the night, she woke up and found the bed empty. From the living room, she could hear Ryan's voice, curious and anxious. She tiptoed to the door and listened. He was on the phone. "I miss you too," Ryan whispered. "You make me feel alive again. She's just different now. I don't even know who she is anymore." Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. Her heart shattered as the truth hit her like a punch to the gut. Ryan was cheating. "I wish I could spend every night with you instead." Lily felt the air leave her lungs. Her knees buckled as she leaned against the wall for support, her hands trembling, her heart pounding. Her mind screamed questions she didn't have the strength to voice. She waited until Ryan ended the call, then tiptoed back to bed, biting her lip to stifle the sob that threatened to escape. The next morning, she acted normal to normal. But inside, something had snapped. A fire had been lit. She needed to know who the other woman was. The answer came quicker than she expected. 2 days later, Lily decided to visit Rachel, her best friend. Since Ryan had banned her from their home, Lily figured it was better to visit her instead. But as she approached Rachel's house, her world tilted. Parked in front of Rachel's driveway was Ryan's car. Lily froze. Her heart thudded loudly in her chest. She dialed Rachel's number once. No answer. Twice. Still no answer. Over and over. But Rachel never picked up. Tears stung Lily's eyes as she turned and walked back home, her legs weak beneath her. Once inside, she locked herself in her room and cried until her throat burned. The betrayal was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her husband, her best friend. The two people she trusted the most. That night, Ryan returned home, but Lily didn't have the strength to confront him. She still couldn't believe what was happening. She needed to hear from Rahel to understand why. She called her again. No answer. Finally, hours later, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. A short, cruel text that shattered her completely. "Ryan is mine now, so quit trying. He'll never be yours again. Love, Rachel." It was short, but it hit harder than 1,000 words. Lily stared at it, blinking, hoping her mind was playing tricks on her, but the words stayed the same. "Ryan is mine now. He'll never be yours. Love, Rachel." She dropped the phone, her breath catching. It wasn't just betrayal. It was wickedness, laced with cruelty from the one person she'd once trusted with her secrets, her Tier 7, her marriage. The world tilted beneath her, and her body folded into itself as she sobbed, loud, aching sobs that seemed to break something inside her. Then, a knock at the door. Soft, polite. She didn't want to answer, but it came again. When she finally opened it, Tessa stood there with her warm smile and a flask of pepper soup. "I just wanted to check on you," she said kindly. "You looked a bit off yesterday." Lily forced a nod, stepping aside. Tessa walked in and placed the flask on the table, then turned and hugged Lily tightly. "God is with you," she whispered, "even when it feels like everyone else has walked away." Lily couldn't speak, not with that message still sitting on her phone like a knife in her chest. Tessa offered to pray with her, but Lily was too broken. Her body shook with sobs, her pain spilling out in uncontrollable waves. Then, suddenly sharp pain. Lily let out a loud scream, clutching her belly. Tessa gasped and ran to her side, terrified. Moments later, they were at the hospital. The doctors worked quickly, examining Lily as she writhed in pain. The diagnosis was derailleur. Baby's heartbeat was faint. They needed to do emergency surgery. But they required the consent of her next of kin, her husband, Ryan. Tessa's hand shook as she fumbled with her phone. "He'll come," she told the doctors. "Her husband will come." She dialed Ryan's number. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Again and again she called. Still nothing. "Please," she begged the nurses. "Just give him a few more minutes. He'll pick up. Please." A nurse stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Ma'am, we don't have minutes. If we delay this, we could lose both mother and child." Tessa stared down at her phone. No missed calls, no texts. She tried calling Rachel too. The number was switched off. With a deep breath and trembling hands, she signed the consent papers herself. They wheeled Lily into the operating room. All Tessa could do was pace the corridor, praying, pleading, hoping with all her heart that both Lily and the baby would survive. An hour later, a doctor stepped out into the waiting area. His expression was somber. "She made it," he said to Tessa, "but the baby didn't." Tessa gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "She suffered a placental abruption," the doctor explained gently. "It was brought on by severe emotional stress. We did everything we could." He gave a small nod and walked away, leaving Tessa in tears. Lily woke up hours later to the worst news imaginable. Her baby was gone. Ryan was nowhere to be found. She laid in the hospital bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, tears silently soaking into the pillow beneath her. But Lily felt nothing, not rage, not grief, just an empty, echoing silence where hope used to live. The baby she had whispered to each morning, the tiny heartbeat she had imagined holding in her arms, was gone. Her husband had left her. Her best friend had betrayed her. The pieces of her life had crumbled in mere weeks. She turned slowly toward the window, watching the sun rise without her permission. Its light touched her skin, but it didn't warm her. Tessa walked in quietly with a small bag of toiletries and a thermos of warm pap. Her face was tired, etched with worry and guilt. "You're awake," she said softly, setting the bag down. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I tried calling Ryan. He didn't pick up." Lily didn't answer. Her eyes remained locked on the window as Tessa's words drifted through the room like smoke. "I signed the consent forms," Tessa continued. "I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to lose you both." Still, Lily didn't respond. Her silence spoke louder than a scream. Tessa sat beside her, hoping for something, anything. But Lily didn't move, didn't blink. Her stillness was her answer. The next morning, Lily was discharged. Tessa accompanied her home in a quiet taxi ride. When they arrived, Lily walked slowly to the front door, her steps heavy like a widow returning from her own burial. She slipped the key into the lock, paused. Something felt off. She opened the door and froze. The house was empty. Ryan's shoes were gone, his books, his shirts, even the framed wedding photo that once sat proudly on the shelf. Gone. On the dining table sat a single white envelope. Her name was scribbled across the front in his handwriting. Lily picked it up with trembling hands. Inside was a note. Just 5 words. "I can't do this anymore." No apology, no explanation, just abandonment. Her knees gave out beneath her, and she sank slowly to the floor, the note clutched in her hand. Tessa stepped in behind her, gasping when she saw the bare living room. "Lily," she whispered. But Lily, her voice hollow, said, "I'd like to be alone." Tessa hesitated, torn between staying and honoring Lily's request. But something in Lily's tone-flat, lifeless, final made her nod and quietly step out. The door closed softly behind her. Lily remained motionless on the cold floor. The note still clutched in her hand. Her wedding ring felt like a shackle around her finger. The world faded. No ticking clock, no traffic outside. Even her breath felt muted. She looked around the room. The walls still remembered laughter. The furniture had once held joy. But now, it was like a stage after the final curtain. Everyone gone. The show over. Her eyes drifted to the corner. The plastic bottle still sat there. The one she had used when her own husband had locked every bathroom. Even in her own home, she had been denied basic dignity. Something shifted inside her. Lily stood slowly, her limbs weak, her soul heavier than ever. But there was a whisper of resolve rising in her bones. She walked to the bathroom door, grabbed a hammer from the storage shelf, and smashed the padlock off. The door swung open. For the first time in months, Lily stepped into her own bathroom. And there, on the cold tile floor, she sat, legs tucked under her, hands trembling. She hadn't prayed in years. Not since her mother died in her arms. Not since all the prayers, all the fasting, all the tears had still ended in heartbreak. But now, in this broken silence, she found the courage to whisper a prayer again. A real one. Raw. Honest. Unfiltered. God, I don't even know if you're listening. I prayed when my mother was dying, and still she died. I gave you everything I had back then. Lily whispered, tears spilling freely now. And you were silent. Her voice broke, raw, with anguish. But this pain is deeper than anything I've ever known. I've lost my baby, my husband, my best friend, my peace. I don't even know who I am anymore. Her forehead dropped onto the edge of the bathtub as sobs shook her entire frame. And there, in the dim bathroom, wrapped only in a towel and pain, she poured out her heart like a shattered jar of oil, broken, yet still fragrant. She prayed until her voice gave out. Then, she cried herself to sleep on the cold tile floor and fell into a strange, vivid dream. She was underwater, deep, deep beneath the surface, but somehow she could still breathe. The sea was quiet, unmoving but heavy, and she felt fear press against her chest. Then she saw him. Ryan. He was chained to a black stone at the bottom of the ocean. His arms were bound behind his back. His face was pale and distant, not dead, but no longer himself. His eyes turned to her slowly, blank, confused, like a man who had forgotten who she was. And beside him floated someone else. A woman, but not just any woman. She had long flowing hair and a glittering tail that shimmered like oil in water. Her fingers ended in sharp claws. Her arms were scaled in blue-black shimmer. Her smile was twisted, cruel. It was Tessa, but not the warm, helpful neighbor Lily had welcomed into her home. No, this version was something darker, something ancient and evil. "You shouldn't have laughed at me, Lily," the sea creature hissed, her voice echoing like a drumbeat in the deep. Lily's heart froze. She remembered it now months ago, when Tessa had first moved in and came over with a warm smile and a pie. Lily had rolled her eyes the moment she left. That same evening, she had called Kachi and laughed, saying, "This new neighbor is too friendly. Watch her be one of those types who end up snatching husbands." She never knew Tessa had overheard. She never knew Tessa wasn't who she claimed to be. The sea witch swam closer to Ryan, trailing her clawed fingers along his jaw. "He belongs to me now. You pushed me away. You insulted me. So I came for everything you had." Lily tried to move, to scream, to fight, but her body wouldn't listen. She was frozen, helpless. She watched, horrified, as Ryan bowed his head beside the sea witch like a servant. Then the mermaid turned her burning gaze to Lily. "Stay broken," she whispered coldly. "That's all you'll ever be." Lily gasped and jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Her heart pounded like a drum. She was back in the bathroom, on the cold tile floor. But it hadn't just been a dream. It was a revelation. Tessa was never her friend. She was the enemy in disguise. A serpent hidden in soft words and fake prayers. A destroyer who used Lily's own weakness to strike. Lily stood, her legs trembling, and stared into the mirror. And then she remembered something, an old bottle of olive oil her mother had given her long ago. A gift before she died, blessed and set apart. Lily ran to her room, found the bottle at the bottom of a drawer, and returned to the bathroom. She anointed the floor, the toilet, the walls, every corner, and she prayed. With fury, with fire, with faith that hadn't stirred in years. Then, a knock, loud, persistent, and a voice on the other side. "Stop what you're doing." Lily knew that voice. Tessa. She didn't stop. She poured more oil into her hands and continued praying, louder now, her voice trembling with power. She anointed herself, every door frame, every room. She got to the front door and placed her hand flat against it. The knocking stopped. Then a scream, a loud guttural cry from outside. "Tessa." Lily stepped back as she heard it, the sound of confession pouring out through sobs. Tessa cried and begged, her voice cracking under invisible pressure. It all came spilling out. When Tessa had moved in and tried to befriend Lily, she had overheard Lily's cruel phone call to Cassie. She was humiliated, furious. And being what she truly was, a sea spirit, a seductress, she had sworn revenge. To get to Ryan, she disguised herself as a holy churchgoer. She started attending his church every Sunday, dressed modestly, speaking with sweetness and false wisdom. Then one day, after service, she approached him. "Why doesn't your wife come to church?" she asked with concern. And Ryan just smiled. Tessa had seen her chance, and she took it. She approached Ryan after church one day, her voice low and filled with concern. "Your wife? She's not who you think she is," she said solemnly. "She's possessed by a water spirit." Ryan had blinked, taken aback. "Watch her closely," Tessa urged. "Haven't you noticed? She always rushes into the bathroom right after you use it. She's doing something evil to you." Then, without waiting for a response, she turned and walked away, leaving Ryan reeling from the seeds of suspicion she just planted. And when Ryan got home, He did notice it. Lily did always go into the bathroom after him. What he didn't know was why. What he didn't know was that months earlier, Tessa had overheard Lily on a call with Keiichi, complaining about her pregnancy making her ultra-sensitive to smell. Ryan leaves the bathroom a mess. Lily had groaned. "And I just can't take it. I always have to rush in and clean it." Tessa had twisted that innocent complaint into a weapon. She convinced Ryan that Lily was performing dark rituals, that she was the danger. And so Ryan locked the bathroom, denied his wife access to her own space, isolated her, shamed her. From that moment, Tessa had full access to the water in Ryan's home. Being a sea spirit, she used the water system to spiritually bind, him breaking him, controlling him, owning him. She orchestrated every moment of Lily's downfall. It was Tessa who sent Ryan to Casey's house that night, told him his wife was evil. It was Tessa who appeared to Casey later that evening, wearing Lily's face part woman, part sea demon. Kachi was so horrified, she fled her own home, abandoning her phone. Tessa took it, sent Lily that cruel message, "Quixote is mine now." And while Lily grieved and unraveled, Ryan was trapped next door her husband, living in the arms of a mermaid. Even the miscarriage Lily suffered, it wasn't natural. It was all Tessa. And now, as Tessa confessed everything kneeling just outside Lily's door, sobbing, clawing at her face, Lily stood frozen. Her hand gripped the frame to keep from collapsing. This woman, this thing, who had once held her hand in prayer, who brought her soup and pop, who let her use her bathroom, had been her undoing all along. "I was warned," Tessa shrieked. "They told me not to touch a woman with purpose, but I didn't listen. I wanted to make you small. I wanted you to suffer. And I did." Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered. Tessa screamed, grabbing her head as if it were splitting in two. From the walls, water began to leak now, pour glowing and swelling like it was alive. A gust of air surged through Lily's apartment, tossing papers and curtains as if a storm had erupted indoors. "They're coming for me!" Tessa howled as the water swallowed her whole. And then she was gone. Silence. The water disappeared. The light steadied, and the corridor stood still. Lily opened her door, stepping out slowly. Across the hall, the door to Tessa's apartment creaked open, and Ryan walked out. He looked dazed, hollow, like a man waking from years of sleep. "Lily?" he croaked, eyes wide. "What's going on? Why am I here?" Lily said nothing. She turned and walked back into their apartment. Ryan followed slowly. When his eyes dropped to her belly, now flat, no longer full of life, his voice caught. "The baby?" he whispered. Lily broke. She collapsed in tears. It was a painful time for them both. But in the days that followed, they sought healing. Lily began to go to church with Ryan. They enrolled in marriage counseling, rebuilding the trust and joy that had once filled their home. Step by step, they found their way back. One evening, Lily visited Keiichi, knowing she too had been a victim of Tessa's wickedness. The two friends reconciled, their bond stronger now, tempered by trial. And life, though bruised, began again. This story teaches us that words have power. A single careless remark can slice deeper than a knife. It reminds us that evil often wears a smile, cloaked in prayers and fake kindness. It warns us never to mock or belittle anyone, because you don't know the depth of their bitterness or how far they're willing to go. But above all, it reminds us that spiritual sensitivity is not optional. In a world where unseen forces manipulate hearts, staying prayerful, discerning, and gracious may be the only shield we have to protect our home sand, our destinies.